Okay, so I will get started. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bristol SEO. We've got over 200 of you subscribed today, so thank you all for taking part. Please let me know in the chat box where you've all come from and how you found out about Bristol SEO. We've got a lot of new faces here tonight, so I'll start by doing a quick introduction to Bristol SEO and what we're all about. So Bristol SEO is a monthly SEO meetup that I started back in May 2018, and this is the 19th meetup that we have done. We usually have 2 or 3 speakers give talks on a different range of SEO topics. This is our second online event since going into lockdown. Normally we would be in a room like this, and we'd have lots of pizza and drinks to go along with the talks and a trip to the pub afterwards. But obviously, because of the coronavirus pandemic, we've decided to go online so that we can still continue with these events. You can follow me on Twitter to find out more about upcoming events and sign up to our event page on meetup.com. I will also be sharing a recording of this webinar on my website, fraught.com. You can also find last month's recordings here as well. Please feel free to tweet throughout this webinar and use the hashtag BristolSEO. So Bristol SEO was sponsored by Seeker Digital, where I work as an SEO manager, and Seeker specialises in SEO for e-commerce and SaaS companies, as well as outreach and link building. You can find out more about Seeker Digital by visiting our website, seeker.digital. So tonight we have 3 speakers, and the first speaker is Beth, who is an SEO specialist at Liberty Marketing, and she will be presenting on how best to use Schema in a crisis. Then we have Louise, who is the digital PR director at Propellernet and also makes amazing TikTok videos about digital PR. You might have seen them on Twitter, they're absolutely hilarious. Louise will be talking to us about how to build links that don't cost the world. And our third speaker is Lizzie-Anne, who is the Client Success Manager at Searchmetrics and is also a lecturer in digital marketing at Piers College, London. Lizzie-Anne will be talking us through 6 steps to create a data-driven content strategy. There will be an opportunity at the end to ask speakers some questions, so please feel free to post these in the chat throughout the webinar, and I will select 3 questions per speaker at the end. Once again, we are recording this and it will be shared either later on this evening or tomorrow. I'll send you all an email once I've uploaded it all to the website. So first up tonight, we have Beth, who's going to be talking about Schema during your crisis. So Beth, if you'd like to go ahead and share your screen and we can get started.
Cool, thank you. Can you see the screen? Yeah, cool. Okay, so thanks, Faye. My name's Beth Barnham, and I'm an SEO specialist at Liberty Marketing in Cardiff. We're a specialist digital marketing agency. And today I'm going to be talking about Schema and how to apply it in times of crisis and potentially what we can learn for search. So think pandemics, recessions, floods, disasters, or anything that could impede your business in a way that we've never seen before. So with the coronavirus, this is something that we've lived through for 4 months now that we've potentially never seen before in our lifetime. So that has an effect on search, marketing, and business owners alike. So just offering an opportunity to react to that using Schema is basically what I'm going to be talking through today. So just an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. As say, the introduction to Schema, the libraries of Schema and how you can use it, the application in using it for coronavirus and beyond, and then what we can learn. So a quick introduction to what is Schema. So as we all know, Schema is a knowledge and a framework that can be linked to or applied to through structures relating to patterns in behavior. that we can refer back to in order to learn new things, but also retain information that we've already learned to apply to new things. However, in the context of SEO, it relates to serving content on search using a more structured format. It uses microdata as a way to add to the HTML of a website and changes it from a totally unstructured mess to something with context and the ability for search engines to read it. So that's why in a longer term crisis, it's really important to apply it because web pages will tell search engines exactly what different tags within the HTML, for example, the P tag or the body tag, what that represents. But what Schema does is it gives it the context to say exactly what it is about and why. So a search for apple pies, for example, might just bring up pictures of apple pies. But how to make apple pies is the context of exactly what that person is looking for. So that's why it's important to link the two together. And it's really about telling Google or other search engines exactly what you want them to show, because even though they're really intelligent, the more information, the better the results that will show, and the more that it will help with machine learning and all different types of things that Google is processing at the minute to make the search better and enhanced. So then I move on to what the most popular types of information is. So in terms of how Schema is structured, it's structured within things. So there are 6 main types of information: event, place, product, person, and creative work. Sorry, that was on the next page. And so basically, an event will cover anything from a theatre event to a business event. And it's important for when you're listing an event on your website to explain exactly what that event is, because it will serve different purposes for the length of the event or the meeting, or where to get tickets, or what the intent is for specific events. And then in light of the pandemic, there's been a new thing added called event attendance mode. And with this, Bristol SEO, obviously this is now online. So adding how customers can attend your event is really important, because it allows things to still go on and still, life to sort of move on, even though we are in this crazy time. So then the place relates to the physical extension or an address of a place. And again, in light of the coronavirus, there has been more support added for has a drive-through or is a COVID testing facility. So there are gyms and leisure centres, for example, that have now been repurposed as COVID testing facilities, or McDonald's and Costa and other brands have now shut their restaurants still, but they still have a drive-through service. So that's really important to have that on your page so that users know, okay, if I go to McDonald's, I'm going to be able to go through their drive-through. And it's just about providing that information, that extra knowledge, so that Google can relate to exactly what you're saying. It matches your Google My Business listing, for example, but also that users can trust it. And then a person is represents any type of person, whether that's fictional or a celebrity or an author or somebody who is known in their field. And you can use types within that to personalize whether they have an additional name or whether they've won awards, for example. And then a product is anything that, as it says, anything that offers a product or a service that spans clothes, food, or even streamed TV shows across Netflix, for example. Organization, and in the context of coronavirus, is really important. So medical organization, for example, is really important to take note of when creating schema for specific websites. If you are, say, a doctor surgery or a dentist or something, because it allows Google to understand, okay, this is a medical organization, and therefore we need to prioritize what kind of information we show people in this time, show searchers, sorry, in this time. So that's one that's really useful at this time. And then creative work is anything that relates to books, films, streaming, anything that's online. So that's really important. If you have a piece of content on your site that relates to an event that's now going to be online, for example. So with all of these types of information, there's ways in which you can take a product and think, okay, this is a product that we can't give it to users in the normal way. So you can be really creative in how you deliver that. So that brings me to how to know what the best schema is for your website. And it's really just looking at the trends in your niche, which you should be doing anyway, looking at what's happening in the world. So it's not hard to get away from the news at the moment to see exactly what's going on around us and reacting to that. As well, what are competitors doing? Have you done an audit of their site? How are they ranking? Have they got a featured snippet? Is there something that you could be doing? That is there a keyword or a key FAQ page that isn't ranking, or something that you can be doing? It's just really important just to have a look, see if there's a gap. And then how creative can you get? There's so many areas, and schema is so versatile that you can have a look across your website and then the libraries and personalize it. You know, what cool pages do you have? Do you have an FAQ page? Do you have a content hub? Or do you have some blog pages that you can really utilize? And it's really just a great situation to be able to just look at everything and think, okay, this is what searchers want, and this is the content we have, and just match it with a bit of schema, and you know, you'll reap the rewards. So now my screen is showing a bit of banana bread, and you're probably thinking, how does that relate to schema? Well, I'm sure you've seen loads of people across social media thinking they're Maryberry with their recipes over the lockdown period. And the trends actually match that. How to make banana bread saw a massive spike at the end of February towards the beginning of March, as to be expected, because everybody was rushing out to the shops to buy flour and making bread. So if you're a recipe website, there are tons and tons of areas to optimize. But in this particular example, I'm going to look at banana bread because it's topical and banana bread is great. So why not? So in order, if you have a recipe on your website, to make the most of what people are searching for, how to, for example, there was loads of searches for that specific keyword. So for a recipe, if you have the schema on your page, Google was going to relate that context of what the intent is of the searcher versus your page and what your page is trying to give. And if your page has a recipe on it, that's exactly what it's going to serve. And that's exactly how you can enter the featured snippets. So for example, a recipe is, I've just mocked up a really quick one for banana bread. And you just outline what the recipe ingredients are, an image, which will really help to appear in the SERPs as well, what the description is, how long it's going to take, and then some really good types that you can add to it is suitable for diet, for example. So if you're looking for a low-fat banana bread recipe and this one happens to have less sugar or is of a healthier type, or maybe it's suitable for diabetic, a diabetic diet, or maybe you're cooking a meat dish which is halal, or a vegan dish, for example. And all of these areas are great because it will suit that search term. An aggregate rating is also a great thing to include because it will highlight the reviews across the web and it will reinforce the authority of that piece. The category is always good if somebody is just browsing for cakes or something, or how to make a certain cake, or and not necessarily banana bread. And then another type which is really good to use in these circumstances is the recipe yield. So some people might be searching for cakes to feed 5 people, especially in times when we're all at home and we're having to eat pretty much every meal at home. You're not going to want to serve a cake that only serves 2 people. So Google can understand that message that you're given through the structured format. So moving on to other trends. So is Primark still open? When Primark initially closed, people were still searching to see if they were open. And you can see there are spikes towards May, where I guess there were talks of reopening. So how that relates to businesses. So Primark was just an example, but if you're in a certain market and you know that people are searching for, are the local butchers open, or is this still happening in terms of greengrocers delivering, for example, you can mark your website up with local business. It's probably the most basic piece of schema that you can use, but it's so effective because you can have the image with your business, you can have the geo. So if you are a bricks and mortar store, you can have this precise location where people can come and they can do curbside collection, for example, which is another area that you can add. The opening hours specification is great because it will tell you exactly whether there are reduced hours, whether the company is temporarily closed, or whether they're operating online only. So, which a lot of companies are doing. Ourselves at Liberty, we're obviously online only. We're not doing any in-person meetings, which obviously a lot of businesses are doing. So it's a really great way to just show that you're still there, but maybe just in a different way. And then the same as property is great to link to another listing on the internet. So Google My Business, for example, just to allow consistency. So those are the types of local business properties that you can do. Then I move on to how to. So during the pandemic, there's been a lot of queries into how to help during COVID, for example. So this is just a quick mock-up of a piece of schema that you could add if you were a charity, for example, and you were doing a piece on how to help or how to volunteer during COVID-19. So the difference between a how-to direction and a how-to tip is that a how-to direction is telling you exactly what you need to do in order to achieve a desired result, whereas a how-to tip is, here's what you could do. So if somebody is looking for ideas, so helping in coronavirus ideas could be, this would be a great application for those kind of intent. And the step just explains what's in the process and the article that you're referencing, and the tip is what they could potentially do. I'll talk about the how-to direction slightly later. So as you can see, the search trends for how to help in COVID went, there was a spike towards the beginning of March, and it's just been quite volatile ever since. So I guess that's people having peaks and troughs of being furloughed and having more time or wanting to help or whatever. So just monitoring these trends again and see if there's a spike and there's a piece of content that you can write to, you know, take advantage of that. Again, how to claim furlough. Furlough was probably something that nobody had heard of really before the coronavirus, but using trends and understanding exactly how to do that. If you were, if you have a financial advisory business, for example, you could maybe create a piece that would create brand awareness because you're showing people how to do it if people don't exactly know how to. And then I move on to special announcements. So this is something that was created in light of the coronavirus pandemic and everything that came with it. And what it is basically just an announcement of something that is relevant for either a local government or a school or a council or something along those lines. So, and what this allows you to do is mark up the announcement location. So for example, a school, and how or why it was closed, and allows you to give the context of where and exactly what the updates are. So you can do that through web feed, which allows you to include additional information through a specific URL. So on this example here, the the school closures info would be a government website, but it would be potentially just a feed of the updates of when people were able to go into school, if they had key workers as parents, or if there was any updates that would just keep flowing through. And because it's already marked up, it's going to show as a high result as a government website, because there's the authority there already. And then I look at other trends of are schools closed in England? When will schools go back? And if you are a school, or if you work for a community group at a specific school, but you need to tell your users of the group that you do that the school is closed, you can also do this on your website too. So it's really versatile, and it can be used across so many different platforms and websites too. So that takes me to beyond coronavirus, and how in this pandemic, how we can use Schema and how it can serve search through other areas that are beyond now. So when we think of going back to normal, some people say potentially it won't go back to normal. Things may be different, or things will be exactly the same. But the truth is, we just don't know. So being able to have something reactive in place is really important if you're managing a website or an online business, because as we've seen, everywhere has shut, and the only route to market really has been the web. So having that strategy in the place from the beginning is so essential, because you never know what's going to happen, and you don't know if that's going to affect your business or not. So there's been talk in the news, for example, that we may go into a recession. It could be worse than the 2008 recession, or it could be not as bad, but nobody really knows. It's just talk. But if you're a business in the financial services sector, you need to be preparing for what people are going to start searching for, and exactly how you can provide the information that they're going to need. And if you can do that now, knowing exactly what potentially could be happening in the world, you can create some great content, and you can help your users, and that will really help in brand awareness and people retain interest in the financial services sector, for example. So even during coronavirus, there was high search trends for deferring a mortgage payment, for example, where people were getting furloughed, or maybe they had not started a new job yet, so totally had no income, or maybe they were a freelancer. Any circumstance may mean that somebody needs to defer their mortgage. So if you're a financial advisor or a mortgage advisor, or even a bank, for example, showing your customers that you can and exactly how to do it is really beneficial. Same with can't pay car finance. This seems to be more of a spike in April, but being able to react to this again is essential, especially if you have a way to do that as a finance company. If you can show users exactly how to defer their payments, or how they can get assistance through your website or your app, is essential. So again, here's an example of how to. So great piece of content. How to defer your monthly payments on a finance agreement, for example. But in this instance, I use how-to direction, because this company has a process in place to defer. It might be that you have to, in your company, for example, you have to call and speak to somebody. But with everything going online at the moment, there may be an option for you to log into your online account and then defer the payment, for example. So these are exact steps and directions of how to do something. And the user is only going to get a result if they follow the step-by-step instructions. So having this piece of code with your brand name in, for example, is going to get you to be able to rank higher for those snippets. So that takes me to what can we learn for search? And really, Schema is a great resource. It doesn't need to be maintained. You simply write it, check it, test it, implement it, and leave it to work its magic. You can set targets that are achievable and actionable. So even if that means adapting your strategy to react, even if you've got a 12-month strategy and something happens, I don't think anybody had coronavirus in their marketing strategy this year. But having something that is reactive is essential to retaining those rankings and featured snippets that potentially could have been lost because people just aren't searching for the same thing that was in your strategy in January, for example. Ensuring it's adaptable and customizable, so it doesn't matter what your niche is. There's a type that will suit your audience and is easy to apply to your own website or industry. It's really easy to implement. So if you don't have a developer resource, there's loads of learning resources online. You can either write your own using schema.org, which is one of the best libraries where it originated from, or there are JSON generators that you can utilize if you're not too confident with writing your own. And then again, if you don't have a dev resource, you can add it yourself via Tag Manager. So it's a great bit of SEO work that you can take advantage of if you're not that technical. So Schema is reactive and proactive. Now, as an SEO, you're probably going to say, Beth, Schema, SEO is not reactive in any sense. And no, SEO isn't on its own, but Schema is. And if you post a bit of content and you can add a bit of Schema that has been updated recently, or even if you go over and audit the content that you've had before and just see what Schema could be added now, that will help. So it's really important to be on the ball and to just go hand in hand with what your marketing team are planning on doing, what your content team are planning on doing, and seeing if there's opportunities, because it's more important now, more than ever, to get that right. It's versatile, and as I said before, it suits almost every single website. It's there to help whatever the problem is. So whatever library you're looking at, or whatever piece of content it is that you're struggling to mark up, there'll be support, there'll be help there. And it's massively underserved anyway. So there's a massive gap on search engines and featured snippets and rich results to get search, to understand the context of your business, to rank higher. And as everyone knows, if you work in SEO, it's a changing game every single day. So to prepare your site for any changes, or something could hit your industry or something could happen, and so just ensuring that you're on top of your game for any changes in the SERPs is absolutely essential. And then, as I always say, not making the most of Schema is a bit like having a shop, a bricks and mortar store, and not registering it with an address. Like, nobody's going to know where you are or how to find it. You're not going to have a postcode, so how's anyone going to come through the door? They're just not. So serving that piece of information to search engines to be able to rank higher is just one of the most important things to do. I put together a resource list. So schema.org is where Schema originated from. The JSON LD playground is great if you just want to write a bit of code and just check that it's right. The structured data testing tool, you can throw a URL in there if you're unsure whether your content has a piece on there. You can throw it in and it will scrape it for you to save you having to do the manual work. Same with the rich results. It will test exactly if you are eligible to appear in the rich results, and it will tell you if you're not, exactly how to fix that. And then some other resources from GitHub developers, a bit more technical if you wanted to write your own. But I say there's a lot of resources out there, even if you don't want to. And that's it. Thank you very much. If you want to learn more, or you want to know more about how to implement it, I'm more than happy to have a chat with you. So just get in touch with me.
questions come in, and I'll go through them all at the end. But yeah, that was a really interesting talk. You know so much about Schema. I only really look at sort of like the Google developers site for it. Would you recommend looking more at the Schema.org site?
Use them both. The Schema library is great because it's just always getting updated. So with the coronavirus pandemic, for example, they release loads more stuff. So it, just using that is useful in itself. But then the developers will tell you from a search perspective of how they see it. So it's never one or the other. You can never have too many resources in SEO.
Awesome, thank you. I'll leave the rest of the questions for the end. Up next, we have Louise, who is going to be talking to us about how to build links on a budget. Louise, if you'd just like to share your screen and we can get started.
Sure. Cool. Can you just give me the okay that you can see it? I can't see the chat, so I have to say. I'm going to guess that's okay.
Yeah, we can see.
Excellent, thanks. So hi, yes, I'm Louise, and yeah, I make silly TikTok videos, but I also I build links through digital PR at Propellernet, which is an agency in Brighton, and my kind of summary of what digital PR is basically just creating content and stories that the media will cover and link to. So the last few months have been a wild ride in our industry. There's been a lot of media upheaval, which is obviously very impactful when you're doing PR, like what the media covered changed quite a lot in a very short space of time. There were also cut budgets because many industries have been impacted by coronavirus, and everything basically leads to nervous clients, which is totally understandable. This is something that most of us have never experienced before. So yeah, it's been a dicey few months. But despite this, we have managed to build hundreds of links for our clients. And I'm not going to lie, at the beginning of all this madness, I wasn't sure that was going to be the case. It was extremely odd, but we did it. So this is basically what this talk is going to be about. And when we kind of looked at the things that were really performing and what's made us be able to build those links, there were three things in common. The stories that we were putting out were very quick turnaround. None of them had any fancy assets, and because of all of that, they ended up being quite low cost as well. And it feels quite different to some of the stuff that we were doing, well, pre-corona, really. When you think of PR in general, you might think of celebrities and expensive videos, events, or big surveys. And we've done some of that. We worked with the cycle brand Evans, and I don't know if anyone remembers or have heard of the old Hovis advert, where there's like a little kid who can't push his bike up the hill because he's delivering his bread. We basically found that little kid, who is now a fully grown man, and we gave him an e-bike, and we got him to finally conquer the hill. It's called Gold Hill, with the e-bike. So he managed to get to the top. So it was like a big shoot day. It involved paying talent. So it did great. It got wonderful coverage and got wonderful links, but it was quite a big job to pull together. I think if you're more of a digital PR person, kind of the traditional digital PR maybe, you might think of like huge data sets, working with developers, making big interactive pages, or having fancy designs being made. And you know, we've done this as well. We worked with celebrity cruises, and we found out the most sung about places in the world. We went back to the 1960s in terms of charting music, so that was a huge data set. And the content that we created was a big interactive piece, which was really cool. Again, got lots of links, hit all the KPIs, you know, it's won some awards, that's fantastic. But it's very different to the type of stuff that we've been doing in the last couple of months, which has basically all been about the humble blog post. The content that we've been getting links to has just included some text, a few images, and a couple of tables of data. So it's very different. And it's kind of reminded us that it is all about just having a really good story that the media want to cover. And the linking part of it and the content that you're getting the link to is just something that they are happy to link to. I'm sure some people might not like this, but I can't really think of a time when a journalist has been excited to link to something, but they have been excited by the story, or they've been intrigued by it, or they've just been interested in what you've created. The link part of it isn't the big deal to them. So when we're, again, like analysing the work that we've done over these last few months, realise that, you can find a great story in loads of different places, and it can cost nothing or nearly nothing. I put the nearly in there because I imagine quite a lot of people listening are from agencies, and obviously your time is very worthwhile and costs money, but these they cost nothing in terms of third-party costs. So the first kind of aspect would be to find your resource. So I'm going to go through a few of like my favourite free resources to really build your story, and they're really the crux of the story. The first two are going to look at what you can get from your brand, so either your client or the brand that you work for. And it's really to find out whether you have a brand expert. So on the right-hand side is a piece of coverage that looks at how to tint your eyebrows at home. So it's from a beauty brand. They just provided some expertise on how to do it, what you need, some nice images to show you how. And that in itself became the story and got them a link and got them coverage in the Metro, which is fantastic because they were a very well-placed brand to be able to provide that information. I think really it helps if with this kind of brand expertise, it helps if you're saying something surprising or shocking or unusual. But in this instance, with the eyebrow tinting, it was just being timely because that story came out during lockdown when people couldn't actually go and get their eyebrows tinted by a professional, so they needed to work out to do it at home. So it's kind of either do something that is, gonna be something the journalist has never heard before, or just make sure you've really worked out your timings in terms of the comment that you go out with or the tips that you go out with. Also, if you're thinking like there's just no one in my company or there's no one in my client who could provide that expertise, the expert can actually be you. And this might sound a bit disingenuous, but if you utilize maybe some work that you've already done or with the client, or you look at what's already on their site, or even you do your own kind of research and pull together something which you think will be basically doing all the legwork for your client, and then show it to them, make sure they're happy with it. Obviously they can add tweaks to it, but you've basically done the bulk of the work for them. They still get to make sure they agree with what you're saying and what you're proposing that they can say, but at least they don't feel like they have to do a big long slog of putting together all these tips and things like that. You can still basically craft it yourself. The next one would be to look to see whether your brand has seen any spikes in sales. So on the right, there is a story from, I believe, ASOS. They were saying that sales of their silver chains had gone up, and this was particularly topical because Normal People had just been on. There is a lead character who wears a lovely silver chain, so it was already being spoken about in the media and on social media a lot. So the brand was just able to look to see whether that had an impact on their sales, package it up as a bit of a story, and again, it just is the news really. That one isn't surprising necessarily, but it is really tied to recent news or pop culture, which I'll come on to in a sec. But in terms of the surprising element, if you are a bath brand or bathroom brand and you just say sales of baths have gone up, that's not very exciting. But if you're a bathroom brand and you say that sales of bidets have gone up, but right at the beginning of lockdown because no one could get their hands on toilet paper, then that is actually a pretty interesting and surprising story that really reflects something that's going on in the world. So that works as a story in itself. If you really can't think of anything from your own client or brand, then you can look outside of your own client's information. Search data is one of my favorites, and I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted on this talk. But an example of how we've used this recently for one of our stories was for a luxury holiday brand called Kuoni. Obviously, in the last few months, they haven't been able to do many luxury holidays for anyone. So we had to adapt really, and I don't know if you remember, I think people have got a bit tired of it now, but people used to do a lot of Zoom backgrounds, and a lot of people were doing beautiful destinations because obviously they couldn't actually go on holiday themselves, so they pretend they were with a Zoom background. So we use search data to find out actually which of those particular destination Zoom backgrounds were the most popular. And yeah, I've got some lovely coverage and links from that. Ooh, excuse me. Search data is like one of my favorite things because it is basically a free survey you've already got the results. It reflects people's preferences and current trends. So it might take a bit of digging to kind of work out exactly what you're trying to find, but you just know that your answer is already there. You just need to find it. Some of the kind of classic stories that you can do with it is most searched for, holiday destination, or every country's most popular ice cream flavour, or increases in searches for holidays or honeymoons or something like that. Whatever is connected to your brand, you don't have to necessarily talk about your product, you can talk about the kind of connected topics around your brand as well. And where you can get this information, if you have Ahrefs or BuzzSumo, they both have keyword data available. If you spend money with Google, then you can use Keyword Planner through Google Ads. If you don't have any of those, because obviously Ahrefs and BuzzSumo you do have to pay for, then Google Trends is your nice free friend. You don't get keyword numbers, so you don't get the figures behind it, but you do get the kind of percentage increases. So you can still make some really great stories. That's what we used for the Corona story, because obviously it was very reactive. So something like Keyword Planner isn't going to have those search volumes automatically, whereas Google Trends is really reactive, so you will have them available. The next one is analyze social media data. This used to be my favorite thing until Instagram changed its API. So things have changed a little bit. It used to be that you could get a lot of information from Instagram, but since Facebook bought it, they have changed that. But despite that, we were still able to make some great stories. This one on the right-hand side is from my time with the lovely iProspect. So it is the most Instagrammed bathrooms in the world. I've just pulled out two different social media platforms where you can get information from. These two I think have the most opportunity. But with Instagram, like I said, it's harder to get information from it. But if you want to do a most photographed story, you just need to look at the number of hashtags. So if you can do that on your phone, but you can also use the desktop version as well, you need to make sure that whatever you're kind of looking at and comparing is going to be something that people hashtag. But if you think about like landmarks around the world, if you take a photo of the Eiffel Tower, a lot of people will do hashtag Eiffel Tower. So in that kind of topic and frame of mind, then that works really well. You can also spot trends with like kind of manual tallying of images. This is a bit of a job, but it is a way of kind of gleaning what people are putting on Instagram. So you could say, if you wanted to look at, what trends are people using the most in their bathrooms. If you want to base it on Instagram, you could look at certain bathroom hashtags and then look at, let's say, 50 images from each of those hashtags to make sure that you've got a really good sample amount, and just do some manual tagging up of what's in those bathrooms. So that could be colours or particular styles of bathroom. And finally, for Instagram, people are fascinated by how much money people make from the platform. So it's a bit of a cop-out, but I've just said Google for the latest information on this because it does change a lot of the time. So, but you can Google and you'll find tools which will work out how much people can earn based on the number of followers, or there's some reports done by reputable places that will say for X number of followers, you should expect to earn this amount. So that's what you can kind of use for your calculations. And then TikTok, my fave. But you can also look at the number of videos per hashtag. So in a similar way to Instagram, you can also do that with TikTok as well. There's lots of account-specific information that can be found on Social Blade. So same with Instagram as well, and other social media platforms. But that means that you don't have to trawl through everyone's account and kind of make note of everything. You can it's a bit easier on Social Blade. And then also I've done the same sort of thing. If you want to find out how much people are earning through TikTok, just have a Google and see what the latest figures are, and then you could build a story maybe around that. The next one is around running a free survey. So normally surveys, I don't know if you've kind of come across them, you might assume that you have to go through a survey provider, which can cost like hundreds or thousands of pounds, depending on how big of a survey you want to do. This example here, again from the lovely iProspect, was around the UK's favourite Christmas chocolates. And it was done with a free survey. So we didn't use a survey provider. We just did one through, I can't remember if it was Google Surveys or SurveyMonkey or something like that. And then just circulated it enough to get enough respondents. I feel like any kind of PR purists will hate this, but it doesn't necessarily have to be over 1,000 respondents. Some people will say it has to be over 2,000, but in my experience, it doesn't have to be. This one was just over 600 people. I think this is probably because this is a very light topic. We're talking about Christmas chocolate here. We're not talking about anything serious or anything scientific. I think that would be a different kettle of fish. But if this is the kind of thing that your brand can do, then don't feel like you have to spend a lot of money to make sure you have 1,000 or 2,000 people. If you can survey your own database or things like that, or just circulate and get enough people to answer it, if you've got a light enough topic, I think that's fine. Freedom of information requests. If you're in digital PR, you probably hear these referred to quite a lot. They take ages, they can take months, and then they sometimes cannot even come to anything. So if you're trying to do a reactive story, they are not your friend. So my tip is to just use someone else's. You can search through all of them, all the kind of authorities. You can see who has had successful freedom of information requests, and you can get that data. There are things like exam boards or local councils or Ofcom, Transport for London. I mean, they sound quite dull, but you can actually find some really great stuff within there. It is a bit laborious. You have to get through, scroll through quite a few things, but it is a lot quicker than putting together your own freedom of information request. So just recommend looking to see what's already there and seeing if you can work your story around that. And on a similar note, just using any free published data is your friend because it's free. The story on the right-hand side is done based on DVLA data that doesn't involve getting a freedom of information request. It's all kind of freely published. You can also find freely published information about how much councils in the UK recycle. And you can find out the average cost of living in loads of countries around the world on, never know how to say this, Numbeo. And that's just like 3. Unfortunately, there is not a big kind of list of all the online resources that you can use for digital PR campaigns. I wish there was. So I'd recommend making your own by, whenever you see a digital PR campaign that you like that's based on data, just immediately go to the methodology. Just find out what they've used and make a note of that and keep a note. Even if it thinks like you're like, I have no idea how I'll ever use this data set. If you just keep a note of it, then at least you know that you have it and that it exists. And who knows, it might spark an idea sometime in the future. But that's the best thing. Someone out there has spent ages finding that data source. So just take it for yourself. Once you've got your kind of crux of your story, your like kind of data part to it maybe, I would suggest picking a safe topic, which does not mean boring. It just means either something topical. So it's a few examples of the last couple of months, what's been topical. Animal Crossing, normal people, as I've mentioned, TikTok, Zoom, the heat wave, which is ironic because it's currently shutting it down in Brighton, Tiger King, the pubs reopening, and McDonald's drive-throughs opening are all things that the media are talking about anyway. And so if you've got a story about it, then the media are probably going to want to hear about it if it's a good one. If you don't want to do topical, then you can do evergreens. So something like the Kardashians, pets, gaming, driving, Disney, royal family, sex, celebrities, or travel. Travel's a bit of a dicey one right now, but broadly speaking, travel are all kind of topics that the media love pretty much all the time. And so the only kind of way that I'm able to like put together a list, and obviously it's not an extensive list, but it's just purely by looking at the media every day. It's not the worst job in the world having to read publications every day, but you just start to notice trends. You start to notice what people regularly cover, and then also kind of spikes in like this is becoming really popular right now. So once you've got your kind of free story, it's really topical, or it's going to be something that the media are really interested in, I would really recommend just making sure that it has global appeal as well. I'm pretty sure that all those examples I just put in the last 2 slides, I think they probably all would have at least some global appeal. This is a story that we recently did, the most listened to songs during sex. The media list kind of looked like this. So there were nationals, regionals, lifestyle, celebrity, music sites. Great. But as soon as you open it up to different countries in the world, you have suddenly multiplied your media list by a lot. And that is just kind of English speaking or countries which have a lot of English speaking publications. If you have the ability to outreach in different languages, then you're going to go global. You're going to have a huge media list to be able to go to. And it means that your story, which has already kind of been really quick to turn around and not cost you a huge amount, is going to get lots and lots of links. So you're going to have a very happy client. The last part is making a linkable blog post. So this is ridiculously simple, but what I found works is just writing up your story and just add a little extra, a little bit of spice to it, and that's kind of all you need. So if you have a nice snappy title, maybe a few nice images, your results, some little bonus bits here. So that could be some expert tips, that could be some further assets which you didn't think maybe you weren't quite strong enough for your PR story, but are still worthy of the blog post, or even just some more further data. And then of course your links to all your pages that you want to positively affect with your link equity flowing through. Then in my experience, that is absolutely fine for a journalist to link to. Again, I'm going to repeat the thing at the beginning, but I think the journalist just cares about the good story. They don't need to see something interactive on that page or anything fancy. They just need something that makes sense for them to link to, and most of the time journalists are happy to. These are the kind of things that I tell journalists, which is, please include a credit to the original research. That normally works pretty well. Or like, more information can be found here, and you provide a link to the blog post. And normally that is all they kind of need. I think journalists now are getting much more used to including links, shock horror. But yeah, that kind of thing, and having a blog post which makes sense to your story, you're golden. So these are the 4 things which have just gone through. So you've got a really solid free resource. You have kind of honed that into a topical or an evergreen kind of story. You've made sure there's international appeal, and then you've made a very great but simple blog post with all your further information. Do all those 4 things, and I think you've got link gold on your hands. And there's been some really great bonus benefits for us kind of using these kind of tactics in the last few months. There's been less pressure. I think if you are making a digital PR story or a piece of content that you're going to get some links to, and you know that it's cost tens of thousands of pounds, that is a lot of pressure to put on your team or yourselves to be able to get a number of links that seem worthy of tens of thousands of pounds. So by doing smaller stories, the pressure is off, and so I think it just makes for happier link building in my experience. I think it gives you the ability to be more adventurous, because, so say if you have the same amount of budget, say, but you're just going to cut it differently. You're just going to do more stories, but smaller. It means that you can be a little bit more adventurous potentially with what you do. So you can take a few more risks because you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You can think, oh, actually, maybe I will do that story about X, Y, and Z, because if it doesn't go quite to plan, then we'll make it back on the next one. Gives you ability to be reactive. So all those topical topics that I mentioned, you can't, if you've got a big interactive map to make off the back of that, or if you've got some designs to get done, or if you've got to hire a celebrity to put together your PR campaign that's going to be reactive to that story, by the time you've done all that, no one's going to care about the topical topic that you were going to react to in the first place. So by just having something which is fairly easy to put together, putting up a quick blog post, then you can actually be reactive, which is great. And it also allows for consistency. So whereas previously, I think we had fallen into a trap where we would put all our eggs into one basket, but luckily that would get a lot of links. And then there would be a kind of quiet period for our client, and then we do it again, and then quiet period. Whereas this way, we can be building links really consistently, and I think that is the ideal, really. Talking to our kind of tech team within the business, like that is what they kind of want, and that we are seeing kind of great results off the back of that. So by kind of chunking up your budget in this way and kind of spreading it out into a number of little stories, you're actually getting some great SEO benefits, obviously, from it as well. So yeah. Happy link building, everyone. I hope this has been interesting. I'm on Twitter if you have any questions, and I'm on TikTok, which is not a place to ask questions necessarily, but you can watch some silly videos that I make about digital PR.
you on TikTok. Your videos are just incredible.
Thanks very much.
I might just download it just for you. But I always see them on Twitter. I just really enjoy them so much.
Also, I've just realised that I'm now getting the double voice from you.
I don't know what happened there, but you sounded fine after a minute, so it's probably just our mics mirroring each other. But anyway, so up next we have Lizzie Ann, who will be talking about data-driven content strategies. So Lizzie Ann, if you'd like to share your screen, and I can't hear you, Lizzie Ann. Can anyone else?
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can hear you now, and I can,
yeah,
see everything.
I think there's a little delay. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. I'm going to talk about the 6 steps to create a data-driven content strategy. A little bit about me. So I'm currently working at Searchmetrics, which is a SaaS platform offering data insight around search. So before we start, I just would like us to have a little recap of the main challenges that we face when it's down to content marketing. So as we know, the challenges is to create engaging content, to have people interested about the content, measuring the return on investment on the specific content, and also gathering the right data while we create content. And as you know, the main goal is to produce engaging content with high quality, and also at the end of the day, bring value to the audience. And that's the reason why by working, I had the chance to work in different channels, whether it's PPC, social, or search. I've seen that most of the time we need to use data more often, because the thing is, when we have a copywriter that tend to be into the creativity, the art form of content, and you also have the technical team using data to do their part. But what I've seen, which is really important, is to have the data owner working with the copywriter and the content marketing team. So why is it important to do that? Because you will create content which is actually targeted to your audience. You really make sure that when you create the content is based on the data you've seen, and also you will be able to spot the buying stages of your customer. So the 6 steps that I have created is to really looking at the different stages that a content writer go through, and then implementing data into the different steps. So we have the research, we have to identify the right topic, we need to analyze the user intent, create content, distribute content, and then analyze the content performance. What is really important is to make sure that always these steps are based on your marketing objective, whether it's branding, having some traffic, or sale. So the first step is to research. So the research part is based on looking at your target audience, having a clear understanding of what they want. So I took this example of 2 women. They all want to buy dresses, but on the right side, we have more women who want who's looking for business type of dresses. And on the right side, this woman is what I would call the fashionista. She's looking for something a little bit more casual. So you have to make sure that you understand the difference between these 2 type of users or consumer. So in order to do that, you need to do user research. As we are all in SEO, that's something that we need to looking at the type of topic that each individual is looking for, looking at the search volume, and also looking into the SERP and the seasonality. Once you have looked at the research, you also need to look at people also ask, because as you can see for the 2 different type of search, you have different queries. So for example, for work dress, it's a more question related to how to look good, how many shirt dress I should have, how to dress well for work. But for the day dress on the right side, you can see a little bit about occasion, how to wear specific dress during the day or during the night, etc. As you can see, when you have these two different users, you will need to create different type of content. And also the second thing is to research the competitors. So really the competitor is to understand what they do. So you do your research on your side, but you also look at what the competitors is doing. So here you look at the topic, the keyword ranking, the content, etc. So your goal is to really match the consumer need by looking at what the user is, the competitor is doing, and you could decide whether to do something different or even do something similar. And really the benefit is to really look at what's the potential in terms of the audience. So looking at the competitor, you can start with Google search, obviously. You look at what are the different competitors, but also something that is really important is to look at, based on the competitor, what kind of term they use, so that you can do what we a market gap analysis. You can look at what type of term, whatever topic your competitor is talking about, and then you can also look at what kind of topic you're talking about. You do a comparison, and then you see where there is a gap. So here you can see how here we're comparing two different URL based on work dress topic, and you can see the circles show the overlap between you and your competitor. We do this exercise with search metrics tool, but however, you can have a lot of tools to be able to do this. And then something important as well is to compare your keyword, your topic with the one from your competitor, and then obviously looking at the traffic and the search volume that you both have. And then something really important as well is to identify the right topic. So to identify the right topic is to look at what's the topic that provide the most search volume. So here we have the topic, which is work dress. And we can see that based on this little bubble, you can see that the bubble in blue are the topic that bring most search volume. So therefore, when you pick your topic, it will be better to pick a topic within the blue area. And as you can see here, you have some suggestion on what kind of the specific keyword, the specific theme that your consumer are searching for online. Also, the seasonality. You also have to take into account seasonality. So the implication of seasonality is when you see, for example, in the blue circle here, tend to be more in winter. So therefore, all the different topic and the keyword that you see on the right side in blue should be ready for winter. So therefore, you can get yourself prepared and ready for where there is a surge in terms of search volume. And also, at the end, selecting the right keyword based on the search volume. And also the relevancy. Something that we really look into is to look at when we have a topic, we have to make sure that it's relevant. So in search metrics, we will tell you the relevancy based on the actual keyword that you have selected. And then the next part is to analyze the user intent. So the user intent is really to know what the person searching online is looking for and what type of content they are looking for. So we have currently something that is really growing among Google is to make the distinction between informational, navigational, and transactional. So informational is about know something. That's where the user want to know something, is looking for information. Navigational is when the user want to go somewhere, a little bit when someone type on Google saying, let's say ASOS dress, for example, that's why it's navigational. And transactional is when you know that the buyer is ready to do a purchase. So as you can see on the table, I give you an example of what type of keyword, what kind of phrases people tend to use depending on the type of queries that the user is making. And then when you have a key understanding of the different search intent, you then will be able to see, based on the specific topic, based on the specific keyword, what type of intent the user wants. For example, here, as you can see on the bubble on the right side, you can see in blue is more informational. So therefore, this themes, this topic, that's where the user wants really information. So the content that you provide the user will be more around informational type of topic. And when you look at the green one, is more about transactional. So therefore, the user is ready to purchase, and you will need to provide them some information about how to buy. So here's a good example. When we make the link between the search intent and the user journey. So here, if you look at the table, you have awareness, consideration, and purchase. So the awareness stage of the buyer journey will be linked to informational, where the user wants to know something. In terms of consideration, that's where user want to compare, is doing some research. So therefore, the type of queries will be more navigational. And at the purchase stage is more transactional type of search intent. So therefore, he's ready to buy. He has he has his debit card on his hand and is ready to purchase. So therefore, when you when you look at the queries, you need to make sure that you understand what's the buyer journey, and also what type of content you need to create. So that's where we come to the create content. So now we know that we need to take into account the topic, the search volume of the topic. We need to have a clear understanding of the search intent of the buyer. We need also to understand the buyer journey. So once you have all this information, you then need to create content. So when you create content, when you know that people are looking for information, the intention is to get information. So therefore, the type of content you need to create will be more guide, tutorial, providing tips, and also the format can be images, video, etc. But you know that the goal of the user, of the buyer, is to get information. So providing them a product page won't be relevant. The same here in terms of consideration. The buyer at that stage is looking for option, is doing comparison. So therefore, the type of content you will create, and there will be more content information, product page, when you can provide them comparison of different products. Also, the webinar is good because that's a stage where if you're into B2B, you provide more information about who you are. And then at the purchase stage is where you know that the buyer wants to buy something. So therefore, the type of content you provide is more product page, product details, and also maps. Nowadays, when you are into e-commerce and you know that the topic that the buyer is typing on search engine, you have to provide maps. So that's just a summary to understand the fact that you have to be intentional when you create content. You have to understand your target audience, you have to understand your competitor, and you have to make sure that you provide them the right content for the right topic and at the right time. And this is an example on Google. So here we have informational, navigational, transactional screenshot, where on the right side is informational. As you can see, Google will provide more people ask question and more informative type of information. In the middle, we have navigational, and then on the right side, we have transactional, and Google will provide more product pages because you know that when someone type buy work blue dress, is ready to purchase. So therefore, Google provide the users specific type of results. So the implication for you as a marketer is to make sure that if you want to appear on the transactional page, your content needs to be more into product page or AdWords. You can see that you will compete with other type of results. So therefore, you need to make sure that your content is relevant. And then once you have done this work, something that we are really focused on in search metrics is an example, is to make sure that when you write your content, it's relevant to what your user want to read. So we know that there is an implication on the word count, depending on the topic that you want to discuss. There is an implication on the keyword coverage, meaning how often you need to use a specific type of keyword, and also the readability, to make sure that if, for example, it's a fashion type of article, you will need to provide easy content easy to read. And when it's down to maybe a more technical type of topic, you need to, it's okay to have a long form of content. Here is an example of how it works. So here, my topic was work dress. So I've put my content, I've put my article, and therefore, as you can see on the right side, we are telling you how often you need to use a specific keyword. We are telling you how often you need to use the specific keyword. So if I take an example, for example, here, we are saying that skirt need to be used 5 times, and within my article, I've used it 2 times. So therefore, I need to see how I can optimize my content to really make sure that I fit into the recommendation on the right side. So why is it important? Because we look at the competitor, we look at how often the competitor are using specific keyword, we're looking at this keyword that your competitor are using. So therefore, when you decide to compete on the search result, you know that you are able to compete in a good form. And then once, obviously, just a little quick note here, to really optimize your metadata. Once you have chosen the relevant topic, you have chosen the relevant keyword with the right search volume. So therefore, you need to optimize the title tag and meta description. And also, once you have done all this while you're creating your content, you analyze your user, you analyze the search intent. That's where you distribute the content. So distribution of content will be the type of distribution that you will usually do on your within your company. However, something that is really important is when you decide the right topic and the right keyword, you need to make sure that you have this keyword into your social media post title, into your blog post title, and also into the body of your blog post, on your subject line if you do some emailing. Also, you make sure your landing page is optimized, the images and the videos, so that you know that you have fully optimized your content. And then to finish, you need to analyze your contents, and the analyzing is really once you've written your content by using data, and then you also need to analyze the performance of your content to make sure that you're on track, to make sure that you can justify the work you're doing. So as I say, always monitor the trend. And here is a little summary of the key steps. Step 1, research your target audience and the competitor. Step 2, identify the right topic, looking at search volume, seasonality, and more. Analyze user intent by looking at the user intent and the buyer journey. Create the content by taking into account the user intent and then adapting your content type accordingly. And then obviously distribute your content by using different digital marketing. But make sure that
one of the questions for you is, what is the best way to identify user intent? Is it just analyzing the search results, or do you have more of an automated process to it?
So you can either use tools like I've shown you, or you can also analyze on Google. So something that, for example, when I work with my clients, I can tell them, if you open the Google into incognito type of form, you type, let's say, for example, flowers, you would type flower in singular and then flower in plural, and then you will see the difference in terms of Google research, and you'll be able to spot the type of search intent.
Yeah, cool. That's how I usually do it. A question for Louise. What's the best way to get people to answer your surveys? How do you reach like these hundreds and thousands of people?
Working in a very large office with lots of offices around the UK, so we could kind of distribute it quite far and wide. I think that, yeah, if you know that you need to be able to get to like a certain amount, let's say like 500, potentially banking on a free survey isn't the best bet. But maybe if you have it as part of like some other bits of your story as well, so you're like, okay, if we don't get to like, you know, big numbers with our survey, then it kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off. But yeah, we kind of did it in the knowledge that we had a lot of people that we were able to circulate it with, so that really helped.
Cool, thanks. And a question for Beth. Would Beth use emojis in your FAQ schema answers, or do you think this looks tacky? I think you're on mute there, Beth. That's all right.
I think it depends on the situation or the client. So if you've got like a legal firm, then no. But if you've got a travel company maybe, or a fun brand or something that uses emojis maybe in their Twitter strategy or something, then yeah. But it's always important to remember that whatever is on the page is what gets seen in search. So if it's not on your FAQ page anyway, then it won't get picked up.
Yeah.
Just making sure that it's relevant for what you're doing, really.
That makes sense. Another one for Louise. Have you ever used Google's dataset search to find data to form any outreach campaigns?
That search. So probably not.
You should check it out. Just Google dataset search, and like Google has all of these massive data sets that you can go through and find information on, I guess.
Well, I mean, every day is a school day, so I will take that one back. You can add that to the list as well.
Yeah, definitely check it out. And just one final question for Beth. I always add a CTA at the end of my FAQ schema answers to try and still guarantee a click through to the site. What techniques do you use to try and encourage the user to click through to the site from the FAQ answer?
It's another depends answer, because it totally depends on what the FAQ is. So if it's just to give somebody information about whether the store is open, for example, then trying to direct them to the contact page that has store information, for example, in this situation. But if it was just something really simple of like how to, for how to, for example, because they're very similar pieces of schema, people are only going to be looking for the answer on search. So the click through is always a bit of an argument. Well, if it appears in a featured snippet, you're not going to get the click through, but it's very much just depends on the intent and how you can get them there, I guess.
Oh, okay. Do you see much drop in sort of click-through rate when you've implemented the schema?
It can do, but if particularly at this time when people are searching for, they want more information, so they generally go into the website. But if they, in other circumstances, if they're just getting the answer that they're looking for really quickly, again, like for a how-to question, if you were searching for how to boil an egg in the kitchen,
yeah,
you're not going to look at the website because who cares? You just want to know. So it just depends on the query.
Okay, that's interesting. Cool, thank you. I think that's all of the questions. So thank you all so much for watching. The next Bristol SEO will be on the 28th of July. Once again, you'll all receive a recording of this webinar tomorrow, hopefully. And I'll be sharing the recording along with the slides on my website. And a huge thank you to our speakers, Beth, Louise and Lizzie-Anne, for taking time out of their day to share their knowledge with us and spending so much time putting these slides together. Thank you all for listening, and hopefully see you all at the next event.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.